The annual ASDA'A BCW Arab Youth Survey is the largest survey of its kind of the Arab world. We're now joined by Sunil John, founder of ASDA'A BCW. Sunil, thank you for joining me.
Good to be here again, Yunus.
Pleasure, pleasure. Now, what are the key findings of the Arab Youth Survey this year?
Before I go into the top findings, Yunus, I think it's important to talk about the survey itself. This is our 13th annual survey. And we have been tracking the Arab world across 17 Arab nations over this long period of time. So we have actually been tracking this data and we are seeing what's changing on the ground. And that's the big value of this. So this year we spoke to 3,400 young Arabs in these 17 countries. We actually reached across nearly 50 cities and territories in these 17 countries. And we did this in June of 2021. So this is fairly fresh from the ground. And what we bring is the findings that is really recent and topical for governments and businesses to hear. This year, Yunus, we thought that COVID had a huge impact among young populations. The decline in the economy was at a record level. The MENA region declined by nearly $227 billion as per the World Bank. Unemployment levels were at a high level. So we were expecting a kind of a depressed findings. But my God, we were really surprised because the top finding this year is that nearly 60% of the sample that we spoke to across these 17 nations said that their best days lie ahead of them. And nearly 48% said that they will have better lives than their parents. And this spirit of optimism, of resilience is really, really a
despite the pandemic, you still have this optimism. How is that?
I think, there are many reasons to this. The pandemic had really depressed a lot of people. There was lockdowns. A lot of people lost their job. In fact, the survey says nearly 1/3 of the sample lost their jobs. But yet, I think the exuberance of youth, because we are speaking to young Arabs in the age group of 18 to 24, and for them, they look at life much more positively. They want to look at more opportunities, at starting their own businesses, of being able to start a home. And that optimism comes from that age group. But that optimism also has its own challenges because the governments and businesses need to meet that optimism by actually having the right policies to be able to ameliorate some of these findings, the obstacles, as young people say, and they are unemployment.
One thing that surprised me is young Arabs have chosen the UAE over Western countries. That was a bit surprising to me.
That is another very top finding and this is a question we asked over the last 10 years. And for the 10th year, when we asked the questions of young Arabs, which country would you want to live in or your own country to emulate, UAE came as the top country. And compared to developed Western countries such as the United States and France and Canada, and this is a great testimony to the wise leadership and policies of the UAE government, the fact that young Arabs feel that UAE has actually shown the way. It's a lodestar of adopting the right policies for a greater future.
So it's all mostly to do with the policies taken, written up by the leaders of the country. And
Absolutely.
Now, let me ask you this final question. Tell us a bit more about the finding on the model nations in which the UAE has ranked as the top choice for the youth.
Yes, so that has, as I said, it's a consistent finding, and we asked young people what are the reasons why they choose the UAE, and clearly some of the reasons are greater opportunities, the right kinds of policies, and ability to start their own families. So they feel that this is a safe place for families to come and live, and the policies are just right for young people at that time of age. They also talk about opportunities to grow their own business, to come with an entrepreneurial idea and make it happen in the UAE. So those are some of the reasons why young Arabs chose UAE as a model nation.
And The youth choosing government jobs over private jobs, is that a good thing?
When we dig a little deeper, Yunus, into the numbers, there has been a drop in terms of preference for government jobs, though they are the top job. For example, in 2019, nearly 49% chose, nearly half the sample chose government as their preferred option for jobs. That has dropped to nearly 42%, while private sector as well has dropped from nearly 30% to roughly about 23%. But what is the green shoot finding is that young Arabs want to start their own business, and that has moved from nearly 19% to nearly 26%. So you can see there is a greater sense of entrepreneurialism within the region, because young people realize that the government has maxed out. They can't create more jobs. They find a way to help themselves by starting their own business. And this is a great signal for governments,
and especially
because
the
they
government
need to set the
recently
right
announcing
policies.
That they want more Emiratis also joining the private sector. I think that's another good push.
I think, yes, this is a policy the UAE government announced, but I think it is important for private sector to create the right environment for UAE nationals to join the private sector.
Sunil, John, thank you for joining us once again. All the best.